that's right.
So, after last night and tonight, the disciples were not saved, right? They technically could not have fully believed in Jesus, yet they obeyed what he spoke, truth, and that's why they were able to perform the healings and all that.
I'm supposed to see.
So in my mind, they're unbelievers. That's how I see it. I'm not saying that that's it, but because they're not saved, they haven't made any confession, but yet they were able to do what Jesus said.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't necessarily unbelievers, and I can put it like this. They're looking straight into the eyes of Jesus, and they're realizing that he is the way to life. Where am I going to go to find the words of life? That's what Peter responds. Are they technically believers from the point of view that Jesus hasn't covered the mercy seat with blood yet? He hasn't fulfilled the Day of Atonement in that way? Yeah, he hasn't fulfilled the Day of Atonement in that sense. But you also have to realize that everything about their theology and what they thought they knew about their theology has completely changed up to this point. Their whole concept of who God is, how God deals with man, and all these things is completely thrown out the window. God is revealing himself in a different way, and so, I couldn't even imagine or begin to explain on how they would have felt in that situation with Jesus. Like I said, they're going through a range of emotions. I wish we knew some of the private conversations. Most of the conversations that we hear from the disciples were public conversations. We don't really have context to private conversations. There's not and the disciples were sitting around a campfire with Jesus, having a conversation. I would like to have known what that was. 3.5 years. Now, in that 3.5 years, we also have seasons where the disciples are away from Jesus because they're coming and going. They're with him and then they're not with him. They're on a mission. He's saying, go here, go to this city, go to that city. So, and then there's other times they're with him. So I think for them, they're just trying to wrap their head around who this guy is. The reality is Jesus himself makes it very clear. Out of all of Israel, there were two who had extreme faith, and they were both Gentiles.
Wow. Yeah.
Because they had no context they were drawing from. They had no previous theology they were wading through. It was just, they weren't trying to find Jesus through the lens of Judaism. So it was easy for them in that sense. But on the other side of it, if I was and I asked that question when I was at the Sea of Galilee. It was 5:30 in the morning. The sun's coming up over the Sea of Galilee. I'm sitting out there all by myself. And I asked Jesus the question, would I have believed you? And he said, no, you would not have. You would have not believed me. And anyone that would say, oh, I would have believed. Yeah.
I have a hard enough time believing right now.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, but look, signs and wonders and miracles and all this other stuff. You got to understand, the signs and wonders and miracles were not an absent thing from the history of the Jewish people. The problem is that they were very aware that other people perform signs and wonders and miracles too. Our only concept of that, of course, is Hollywood. They were very aware of paganism and different things. Most of the paganism that happens in the U.S. is done behind closed doors. The paganism that was going on during the time, their life was done right out in the open. It was done in the streets. It was sexual acts with the Parthon priestess. And right there out in the open, child sacrifices, human sacrifices. We don't even understand what that's like. So Jesus necessarily doing miracles, we would think would be like, wow, I saw him do a miracle. He's the Son of God. They weren't necessarily gullible in that sense. That was the first thing they came to. The first thing many came to was a demon. Demonic spirit is manifesting it through him. That was the accusation. He cast out devils by the prince of devil. And they're walking around. Who gives you this authority? Isn't that amazing thinking about it? Who gives you the authority to heal those people? To them, it makes me think by that question, they didn't even see that God was willing to heal them in their imaginations. But God wasn't even good enough to heal them in their imagination. Yes, God is good. God is good all the time. That's the saying that they would say. God is good and he's good all the time. But at the same time, by the time you get to that culture, I don't think they're cleaving to Psalms. Bless the Lord, O my soul, bless the Lord, and forget not his benefits. I think they're just like, no, God wouldn't heal people like that. So who gives you the authority to do that? I mean, I see someone get healed from a sickness and a disease. If I see a person, like go look up a picture of somebody with leprosy in India, where they still have leprosy. Go look at the fingers that have fallen off and the arms and legs or all that kind of stuff and the body rotting on the flesh. Then watch that be healed in front of your eyes. Now I'm assuming when he says, I make you whole,
Come on.
those fingers came back.
Right.
Now, if I'm watching a finger grow out
Huh.
and skin regenerate in front of my eyes, I'm probably not asking who gives you the authority to do that. Because I'm probably, the only reason you would ask who gives you the authority to do these things would be that I'm thinking the devil is giving him the authority. But that's not even a thought that the devil would do something good. I'd be like, has to be God, but then you've got a culture that doesn't know if God's really that good. And some people are like, well, how can you say that? Because they haven't heard from him in over 400 years. For 400 years, he has not spoken through a prophet. Even when we get up to the time of Zacharias, it's not God himself. When we even see Mary, it's Gabriel. But as far as God speaking to his people through the prophets, Malachi was the last. 400 years. Nothing. They call it the 400 years of silence.
You don't think he was speaking through the ephod then?
No, they didn't have the ephod. Not in that way. Not in the way in which they were using it back in that day. I remember they found a silver mine in Iran, and they looked in it, and it was where the Hebrews were mining as slaves, and they found written on the wall during that, it would have been dated around that time period, Elohim, where are you?
Whoa, okay.
So to them, the arrival of angels at this birth saying, peace on earth, goodwill toward men, is practically the first conversation that God has vocalized to Israel in 400 years. I mean, you got to think Malachi ends with, I'm sending them. 400-year delay. Sending who? The one who prepared the way for the Messiah. A 400-year delay. He will turn the hearts of the father to the children, children's hearts to the father. 400 years of delay. In 400 years, they wrote 390-something commandments.
Right.
The commandment of tithing, mint, cumin, all these different things were written during that time period. So imagine that God is silent 400 years. You built his temple that Zacharias is pushing everybody to build. God said, build his temple. So you build this temple, but yet there's no presence moment. There's no fire falling from heaven like in the dedication of Solomon's temple or Leviticus chapter 9 on the first day of atonement. There's no pillar of fire. There's no Ark of the Covenant. Why would God build a temple that carries no presence? And why would he command Israel to do it? To expose dead religion. Because the very presence that was behind that curtain is now walking among men. He's tabernacling with men. Isn't that amazing? Like, can you imagine Jesus, Spirit of God that is in him, is the Spirit of God that hovered between the cherubim above the mercy seat. The Spirit of God hovered right there. Now is in him, Jesus. And Jesus is carrying this presence. So, what do you offer sacrifices to? There's nothing. Like, what are they offering sacrifices? What are they sprinkling the blood on? What's behind the curtain? Nothing. That's why Jesus ripped it. That's why God ripped it from the top to the bottom when he died. To expose. There's nothing back there. There's nothing there. So that's hard for us to even fathom. So then you come on this situation, and now they're just like, their whole identity of who God is just, or a thought process of who God is that they don't know if he's angry, he's mad, he's just silent. And so Jesus to them is a puzzle. It's a mystery. Makes no sense. And so if I grew up in that culture, I'm most likely rejecting Jesus. Because Jesus doesn't fit within that picture. And became the hardening of their hearts. You know. Any questions? I saw you.
It's more like a technical question, I feel like. But if tithing was created during those 400 years, do you believe that that's necessary?
So the tithing of mint and cumin, the tithing of spices was a command during that time. And that's why Jesus says, you tithe your mint and cumin. Your law says. And you'll notice that when you're reading, there's times he says the law of Moses says. And then there's times he says your law says. Laws that you created versus laws that I gave. And the thing is that I always put it this way. Where there is no relationship, you try to create, and yet, so let's say you meet somebody and it's a long distance relationship. You haven't been able to see each other's face in real life, and so you're talking, you're writing letters or emails or texts, whatever. And so your imagination is beginning to build these invisible boundaries. And these invisible boundaries are laws that you're beginning to create over this relationship. Because you want to make that person happy with you. You want to be pleasing to that person. And so you're being cautious of saying certain things in conversations and doing certain things because you want to please that person. You've never heard that that person says that this is pleasing to me, but rather you're cautious. In the same way, it's like the children of Israel, where there was 400 years of silence, they created their own boundaries and their own laws to create relationship with God.
Interesting. Yeah, that's why it's so important to hear the Spirit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you don't hear the Spirit.
So this is what they're doing. They're saying, well, you know what? Maybe if I tithe this, he'll be pleased with me. Maybe if I do this, he'll be pleased with me. And they came up with 390 of those. Almost one a year. And by the time you get to Jesus, they have a list of things that God never required. Some of those are still active today, and some of those have even increased into more laws. In Orthodoxy, you have to tie your right shoe before your left shoe. You have a certain amount of squares of toilet paper that you can use at once.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you want to have a spare square? A square is spare?
Okay.
Elaine Dennis?
That's funny on so many levels.
But this is where they're at. I mean, have you ever seen pictures when they kosher something? I watched an Orthodox couple move into an apartment. You know what they literally did? These are granite countertops. They had a blowtorch hooked to a propane tank.
Oh my goodness.
Taking it over the entire kitchen countertops and the stove.
Oh, so it wouldn't be polished anymore?
So it would become kosher
Right.
to burn any impurities away.
Right.
See, these are things that they've done to try to be pleasing to God because they do not know his voice. And then that just gets crazier and crazier and crazier and more intense. So you just keep adding and adding because you're questioning inside of yourself through your own insecurity. Is he really pleased with me? Maybe if I do this. Maybe if I do this. And so in their insecurity, in their orphan spirit, they create all this law. And then Jesus shows up. And he's like, they can't believe that this would be Messiah. In that way, it doesn't look like Messiah to me. This doesn't look like the personality of God.
Going back to the first session today about Christian nationalism,
Mhm.
I had a question. You referenced a verse about the government having the role of,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Rule.
Romans 13 or
Yeah.
Okay, so for that one, my question is, I feel like it would be pretty conflicting for a Christian to be in civil government, saying, okay, there is some level of role that played here of punishment towards wrong and being a Christian at the same time, because you have that love your enemies, bless those who curse you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on?
It would be difficult. So let's take a situation. Let's say you're in government and they bring a Saul to you,
Yeah.
who has become Paul now. He has a radical transformation with God. He's no longer Saul, but yet he murdered people. So what do? He becomes the writer of 2/3 of the New Testament. Civil law says this. And there is a way that I've heard this. I've heard people say, once an adulterer, always an adulterer. Once a murderer, always a murderer. Once a molester, always a molester. That's the mentality, that there's no redemption. So what we know as the prison system today was actually created by the church.
Wow.
So in the 1700s, the church began to create what we know as the prison system in America. And the purpose behind that is because, if you stole a loaf of bread, they killed you. You stole something, and you got some pretty heavy penalties for that. And so the church desired to set up a system where they could help rehabilitate people, because they were like, listen, Just because he stole a piece of bread, stealing a piece of bread isn't stealing a horse. He probably stole a piece of bread because he was hungry, not because he liked the horse. So we need the ability to be able to discern between the two and be able to rehabilitate. Teach them something. Teach them how to eat, make money and teach them. So the hospital, the university in America, our schooling system, and the prison were all created by the church. Now, all three of those look like prisons today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Come on.
Have you ever wondered how you go to a cafeteria at a school and it looks like a cafeteria at a prison?
Mm-hmm.
Same trays. Same cards.
That's so true.
Told when to stand up, when to sit down, when to go out. They you even get free time where you get to go walk around outside for a set period of time.
We had military marches in Shrike School.
They even had the same chain link fences at some places.
Wow.
Just one does have barbed wire.
Hopefully.
You get rec time, go play basketball.
Wow.
See?
Wow.
Some of them even have security scanners.
I know. I know. But that's what it looks like. School systems look like prisons.
Wow.
You gotta ask yourself why. Why? The church used to run those, and they didn't look like prisons. And the purpose of it was to teach people how to educate them so that they could read the Word of God. Princeton University was started as a Bible college. William and Mary was started as a Bible college. I mean, those places were there to teach people. It wasn't until after the Revolutionary War that they were changed from Bible colleges to universities and taken over. So,
Why do you think that was? Why would you say they made that shift?
well, first of all, they said at Princeton University, to their knowledge, after the Revolutionary War, there was only 2 confirmed Christians in attendance. So prior to the Revolutionary War, Bible reading could be heard on the corners of the streets. People were preaching the gospel, singing hymns. Even there's a quote, I think, by Benjamin Franklin of people being able to walk through Massachusetts and hearing people sing hymns in the streets. After the Revolutionary War, because war does what war does. Alcoholism grew to over 100,000 people a year, and now the 13 colonies becoming 13 states, alcoholism took 100,000 lives a year. It became a rampant issue within the culture. The churches were empty, the colleges were empty. Trenton was empty, Preston was empty, William and Mary. The culture was broken. Why? Because you're not created to kill men, but to save them, to love them. And so an entire national identity built on what? Taxation without representation. To what? Be taxed the moment the war was over.
Wow.
We got to pay for our new country. They threw tea in the harbor for like a what? 5% tax? Only to have George Washington turn around and put a large levy on alcohol.
I was at Furman when we had Bible study in the rooms, and you're required to go to chapel every day.
Yeah.
It was Baptist.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was a kid, our first grade teacher, when we line up to go to eat, would pray. Everyone bow your head, pray. Secular school. Our basketball coach. I remember him grabbing us and saying, I don't care what they say. They say I can't pray with you before the games, but we're going to pray. And he prayed. I was just in middle school. He wrote me last year, found me on Facebook. Said he'd been watching everything I've been doing. Said, man, it's changed my life. He was a Baptist preacher back then. So you just never know. Never know, but it's just like you think about these things of, so Christian nationalism in the point of view that you try to legislate Christianity within government. That's Christian nationalism. You can't legislate morality.
Well, there's not a heart change.
No, it changes within the culture. Has to change within the culture. And so when you have people that want to try to legislate Jesus, and that's when it becomes an issue. And then it's just, I think the problem that we start seeing is that there's this hijacking of the movement, not necessarily from morally convicted people, but people that aren't really leaving, that have a political agenda attached to what they're doing. They have a motive. You know, it's like I used to say, I think, how many times was it? 30-something times Abraham Lincoln lost elections. It's like over 30 times. He stands up one day, Springfield, Illinois, gives a speech. In his speech, he just kind of winged it and added a little phrase about slavery. Just one little anti-slavery remark. He saw people went crazy. Then he runs as an anti-slavery movement. Not because he was against slavery, but because he saw it gave him power. See, that's the whole thing. This is what politics does. You know, he didn't end slavery. He even made quotes, just send them all back to Africa. That was his remedy. Put them all back on a boat, send them back over to Africa. And it's like, well, no, that doesn't work. And then it's like I tell people, okay, if it was all about ending slavery, a lot of people don't understand. We're 2 years into the Civil War. We're 2 years into a Civil War, and there's slavery in Massachusetts. Well, Brent, I thought the history book said that it's the North against the South. It's the Mason-Dixon line. Only above the Mason-Dixon line that everybody's free, everybody's in prison. You know, slavery is in the South, freedom in the North. No, they hung slaves they hung African Americans from lampposts in New York City, along with the Irish. But we create a culture of we need a right and we need a wrong. We need someone and so we need to look for the good guys and the bad guys. And I pointed this out once before. The Mayans offering up child sacrifices in South America, bad people. That's what the Spanish said. They should be destroyed. All while burning Christians at the stake for saying they hear from the Lord. So they're offering up their own sacrifices to their own idolatry, religion. So we look at one and we say, they're the heroes, they're the villains. And that's what we're looking for. Who's the hero, who's the villain? Everyone's a villain and Jesus is the hero. That's just the reality. So the mixture of it becomes the issue. And that's what I see. So like with Abraham Lincoln, he didn't have a chance until he saw, this got a response, this will get me elected. And then 2 years into the war, they're losing. They're losing the war. Why? Because the South has the best general. Well, why does the South have the best general? Well, Abraham Lincoln actually asked that general to be his general, Robert E. Lee. But Robert E. Lee refused to be the general. Why? Because they declared martial law against his hometown, Richmond, Virginia. And he saw it as a state right issue. This should be voted down by the state right issue. And they declared martial law. So he said, I will not fight for the North. So he fought for the South. So instead, they got an alcoholic named Grant. Grant becomes the commander of the North. 2 years into the war, slavery isn't legal yet. Until the North saw they were losing. What do we need to do? Well, there's 9 million slaves in the South. Let's free them. Let's get word out that they're free in hopes that they might create some type of disturbance and help us win this war. So they did. The Emancipation Proclamation was 2 years after the war started. And then, you know what they did? All these Americans left their slavery, their plantations, they ran to freedom. And you know what happened when they got there? They trained them up to be soldiers. Now fight for your country. We need more people to fight for us. Fight for your country. Fight for your freedom. And you know what they did? They stuck them on the front lines first.
Wow.
Men who weren't even trained to write, didn't even know how to spell their name, didn't even know their names, are now put on the front lines and given military commands that they did not quite know yet, and they were slaughtered because we needed more people in the North. Then the Irish came over during the potato famine. They're starving. With their wives, their children, they get off a boat. Guess what they're met by? Either get back on that boat, go back to England and starve to death, or fight for your country.
Yeah.
Many men got off that boat, took 2 steps, grabbed a rifle, never saw their family again. Put on the front lines. This is the mixture I'm talking about within politics that still exists even today. It's all a big chessboard. So when we try to adopt Jesus into our party, it's done to what? Gain influence, control. It's not necessarily for revival. It's not really for his great name. It's for, let's try to get them to think this is who we are, so they'll vote for us. And then they get in there, they get controlled, and then they don't ever do what they say they're going to do. So that's why I just don't play the game anymore. I find no hope in politics. There is no hope, there is no redemption, there is no salvation in it. Not at all. I know people freer in a jail cell in China than most Christians are here in America. That's the reality. Any questions?
Back to the 400 years, I was thinking as you were talking about the 400 years of the slaves in Egypt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, in the slaves of Egypt, Abraham was told by God that there would be 400 years until, and then I thought, well, there's nothing, but there is, because he prophesied that there would be a Messiah. And then you were talking about how they made up their rules. I'm like, well, they didn't really, but when Moses was on the mountain, they went back to the golden calf. But I was just wondering, I don't know, I was just correlating, like looking at the two. And then when Jesus Christ came, they're like, this isn't what we were looking for. And when Moses came, he was hardly accepted to help lead them out. So I was just looking at the two 400 years that's highlighted in our Bible. So I don't know, I was just...
There's several 400 years. So there's 400 years of slavery in Egypt. Of course, there's 40 years in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Then there's 400 years between the first temple and the second temple. Yeah. So a lot of people, there's over 400 years there between the building of the first and the second. And then there's 400 years from the second to Jesus. Now, Jesus says, they're talking about the completion of the temple when Jesus is there. And when he says, I'll tear this, build it, I'll tear it, build it, rebuild it in 3 days. And people don't understand that there were adding additions that Herod was doing that was a mixture between Roman architecture along with it. But you can read and remember in Nehemiah, they're building the walls. And, oh, Nehemiah, this kid, and they're building the walls, they're restoring the walls of Jerusalem. And then when you're looking at Zechariah, they're Cyrus the Great, of course, giving the money, he's giving all the artifacts from the first temple. He's giving the bronze altar. They had taken everything to Persia. Now it's being returned from Persia. And they're working on the effort in Zechariah to quickly build the temple. So when we get to Malachi, the temple's already being constructed at that point. The part that they're finishing when Jesus is alive is what they believe is Herod's porch, and some of the parts that are being added by Herod at that time.
So, I don't know, some months back, let's say 4 months back or so, I heard you tell a story about a certain day you were in a coffee shop having no success witnessing to people, and the Lord spoke to you about how many people in Nashville, if somebody had witnessed to him that day,
Yeah.
were available to be saved.
Yeah.
Would you tell that story again, and then maybe give us an insight on how what the Lord said affected you, and
Yeah.
how that shifted maybe your thinking and how you approached, and maybe give us some nuggets or some wisdom
Yeah.
on, because I feel like, reaching people is like your heart and what you want to see this group accomplish, actually become the kingdom.
Yeah.
So would you talk about that?
Yeah, so it was actually two different stories. One was is after I got back from Reinhard Bunke and being with Reinhard 2013 in May. I sat in front of a Starbucks. We have a street called 5 Points in Franklin, Tennessee. 5 different streets meeting at once, and I sat down in front of that place, and for 5 days I went and I sat in front, wanting God to use me. I just been with Todd White with Power Evangelism and all this stuff, and I'm like, I really want to do this, and I had just been around a bunch of crazy evangelists. I mean, these guys, when we take a break, I mean, here they are, they're in the mall parking lot open air preaching, they're in the gas stations open air preaching. I mean, everybody's coming back. The scariest part of that whole thing was sitting at a table with a bunch of evangelists. Because they open up. Like, we're sitting and we're eating lunch. I just wanted to leave. I wanted to crawl under the table because it started. Yeah, I led 25,000 people to Jesus last year. I'm like, oh Lord. Then it goes to the next person. I led 15. I led 85. I'm like, no, let's not do the everyone shares how many story. Let's not do that. And then it gets around to me. How many of you? And I think the lowest at that point was like 10,000. And I was like, 5. I'm sorry, guys. 3? I don't know. And I literally had a guy look at me and say, why are you here? And I was like, I don't know. I went back to my hotel room. I called Cessna and said, I don't know why I'm here. I want to come home. I was like, I don't want to be with these people anymore. I was like, these are not my tribe. And it was not. They're not my people. And she was like, no, I just really feel like the Lord's telling you to stay. I was like, I'm going to go listen to Dan Muller right now. I didn't really know who Dan was. Just started listening to him. 2 minutes later, I'm having dinner with him.
Wow.
So this is 2013. So I'm just sitting there, I'm listening to Dan, just feeling like I don't do anything for Jesus. I don't really love Jesus. And then we get into conversation the next day. I'm sitting there, and all these evangelists are talking about all the things that they've seen, and then I start realizing that everything they've seen is overseas in a third world country. And somebody asked me, they were like, yeah, we've been wanting to see blind eyes open. Has anyone seen blind eyes open? I was like, yeah, I have. Wait, you've seen blind eyes open? What country were you in? Nashville, Tennessee. Hold up. You saw blind eyes open in Nashville, Tennessee? Yep. Pulled the guy out of a wheelchair. Seen this, I've seen that. I've seen a woman cough up a tumor. And they're just like, all in like your hometown. And then it was like there was a shift that happened. And next thing I know, people are coming up and they're asking for prayer. They're breaking. I probably ministered to everybody that went to my class on a personal level. And I would say 80% of my class out of the 100, so 80 out of the 100, don't even follow Jesus today. They don't even follow Jesus. Some have come out as atheists, some have come out as homosexual, affairs, all kinds of different things because their identity wasn't Christ. And I had one guy, he reached out and he was like, I've been watching you for like 6 years and you're not broken. I was like, no, I'm not broken. You're just not broken. How are you not broken? I said, because, like, I don't know what you were in this for. Like, what were you in this for? And so I get back and, yeah, I want to do the power evangelism stuff. I want to move in the glory on that level of in the streets. But to that point, I was already seeing people falling out in meetings consistently under the glory. I was seeing healings, deliverances. I was seeing that on a consistent level. And so to them, that was just, how are you doing this? And so I wanted to see a bigger level when I got back. I wanted to see more souls saved. And that was 5 days of sitting there asking the Lord, use me, use me, use me, use me. He said, you get up in front of somebody and I'll use you. And then next thing you know, here I am at a coffee shop and people are falling out everywhere. People are getting healed. People are getting delivered. All this stuff is happening. And I was probably then a lot more bold of a man than I am today. And I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. And part of what he was talking about too is that there was a day I woke up and I asked the Lord a question, and he said, there's 10,000 in the city today. 10,000 right now in the city. I mean, there's over 1 million people in Nashville. So there's 10,000 today that if you were to stand in front of their faces, preach the gospel, they would receive.
Wow.
10,000 right now. So, there's that weight. Okay. So the only reason 10,000 people aren't getting saved is because I'm not willing to go stand in front of the person and be obedient to the voice. And yeah, I started winning people. I stopped counting my salvations a long time ago. I mean, there was times it was 1,000. I have numbers. I have lots of numbers. I just stopped counting. I think I was at Denmark one time and we had like 40-something, 50 people run to the altar for salvation. And I wrote on Facebook, I said 20 plus people got saved. And my leader was like, Brent, like over 40 people came to the front, count. I said, no, only 20 got saved. She was like, how do you know only 20 got saved? I said, because I asked the Lord. Only 20 got saved. So that's just how I did it. I think Jesse's here, but I think Jesse's the only one that went to the prison. And at the prison, the first time we went, over 160 people ran to the altar. More than that, some people counted way above that, but I jumped on Facebook. I said, yeah, we had 100 plus get saved. And they're like, right, it was almost 200 people.
So when I heard that all that months ago, that really affected me. If there was 10,000 people in Nashville at that moment, and I don't know if Greenville's a bigger city or not, I don't think it is, but there's gotta be at least on any given day the same amount here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't get away from that.
Yeah. They're out there.
What? I mean, I know what I've got a serious issue with unbelief that I've got to overcome. But can you speak to, give us some nuggets, get brutal with us about, there's something you want to see here that you're not seeing. You've been coming for how long?
Over a year now.
Okay. Now, I heard out of your own mouth that if you don't start seeing something, and I don't know what that time span is, you're leaving. All right? And I don't know if the rest of you think this way, but I'm listening to what he's saying. And, you know, I want him to leave because we're producing that which he's looking for.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
I want him to work himself out of a job, and I look at myself, and I look at the amount of unbelief I got in my life, and I'm disgusted.
Yeah.
So, Brent, I'll speak for myself. I need help.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep coming to these meetings and leave here the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm looking for something more, and I don't even know what I'm looking for.
A story that marked me when I was 14, and I've done this, was the story where Smith Wigglesworth would go and sit on a park bench for 2-3 hours. He wouldn't preach to everybody. He'd just go sit on a park bench, and he would wait until the Lord said move.
That's
And then he
it.
would move.
That's it right there.
See, the problem with evangelism today is that most of you have moved apart from God, and the door slammed in your face. So the next person you minister, you're ministering out of that experience.
Come on.
What if you were 100% all the time? What if you didn't have to have the door slammed in your face? See, this is Jesus as he's going. When he goes to Zacchaeus, when he goes to the Lazarus and Mary's and Martha's, when he goes to these different places, the door's not getting slammed on his face. When he goes to the woman and sit at the well, why isn't the door slammed in his face? Because he knows exactly where he is at the right time, and it's fruitful.
He's doing what his father told him to
Yeah.
do.
And so Smith would sit there and he would wait for God to move. And then he would move. And I love the story where a guy drives by in a buggy. Smith jumps on the buggy, starts preaching the gospel. The guy starts hitting him with the whip, telling him to get out of his buggy. He said, no, I will not get out of the buggy until you give your life to Jesus. They fight. Smith wins. The guy gives his life to Jesus. Smith hops off the buggy, goes home. Did what he was supposed to do. Okay? A week later, his mother, or 2 weeks later, his mother comes by and says, Smith, just had an interesting conversation. He goes, what was it? She said, I was invited to come to a house of a man who was passing away today. And he passed away and went to be with the Lord. And I wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to lead him to the Lord before he died. And when I went up to him and asked him, I said, do you know the Lord? He said, yes, the last time I was ever in public, a man jumped into my buggy and began to preach the gospel. And I told him to get out, and he would not leave until I accepted Jesus. And that was the last time I was ever out in the public. So, it's like the story where I'm at a coffee shop, I'm leading with a friend, I'm praying for him outside, and then all of a sudden the Lord says, run away. Run to your car, look in your trunk. I open the trunk, there's a sign, ask me for prayer. It says, take the sign, go to this corner right now.
Wow.
I run to the corner, throw up the sign, I'm holding it, ask me for prayer. A man walks by, says, great sign, walks off, comes back, 5 minutes later, trembling, and he said, and he had his wife with him, and he goes, I'm gonna ask you a question. I said, yeah. He said, you don't know me, I'm from Indiana, we're just here for a weekend trip. And last night, I was in my hotel room, and I saw a video by a man named Brent Kelley. Are you Brent Kelley? I said, yes, I am. He said, you're not going to believe this. I was watching a video of you, and I said to my wife when we were laying in bed, I said, I don't know who this guy is, but man, if I ever saw him, I would ask him for prayer. And I'm holding a sign that says, ask me for prayer. He said, and I walked by and I see your sign, ask me for prayer. And I got scared. Went and got my wife. And he said, would you pray for me? I said, sure. And the moment I touched him, boom, he's out. He's out in the street. His wife and I had to pull him out of the street. So I hear the Lord say there's 10,000. No, having children, being a father, makes me, I don't know, overthink things. Maybe I overthink things. I don't know. But I think to myself, what can I steward? How much can I steward? Can I steward 10 new babies? Can I steward 5 new babies right now? What am I going to be able to really father in this season? And that's going to be dependent on how much, because I'm not looking just to go and throw seed. I want to see a harvest. I want to see people come into the Lord. I want to see them walk in victory. I don't want to see them just bow at their head and say a little quick prayer and go live in their hell. That's not what I want. How many of you all would have a baby and give it its first bottle and then walk away? Now feed yourself. If you would do that to an infant, but we do it to people all the time. We call it evangelism. That's not how we're supposed to do it. Where are we going to put them? How are we going to do it? Now, there's different things that happen in those too. Like, my buddy Mike, he used to always, out of his brokenness and insecurity sometimes, I think he would do it. Just too many times I'd be at a restaurant as a 17-year-old. Next thing, Mike's got me talking to some guy at the bar that's drunk out of his mind. Preaching the gospel to him. I'm like, why am I preaching to a drunk guy right now, Mike? And he's like, man, I think he needs Jesus. I'm like, and I stopped Mike and I said, let me just say something. You don't pick the smartest person in the room. You try to find the most broken person because you think that's going to be easier to bring the gospel to. Because that's coming out of your insecurity. You don't want a person that's going to debate you because you're afraid you don't have the answers. You want you in your mind try to find the weakest person who might bow their head and say a prayer. I was like, I'll do that. So going into a street, sitting there, and just saying, Lord, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until you show me. Until you show me who to pray for, who to minister to, because that's important. Because I know this, if he's going to take the time to tell me who it is, first of all, they're getting saved. They're getting saved. And it's not gymnastics, mental gymnastics getting them there. I'm not sitting there trying to get them saved. He knows where to throw the bait. And I don't have to fight him on that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask him. And the other thing is I have to be honest with myself. This isn't a Facebook post of, hey, look guys, here's a selfie with me and the person I led to Jesus today. This is the testimony I throw on a Sunday. Well, hey guys, I led somebody to Jesus on Tuesday. This is, I'm about to bring someone into my family. That's what I'm looking at. I'm about to have to take the time to sow into this person until they can get to a place that they can run, that they can walk, feed themselves. And that takes commitment, and a lot of us don't want to take that commitment. We love our time. I have 7 kids. That's a big commitment. I have a wife. big commitment of a ministry, big commitment. You know, it's like I was showing Jennifer, I'm heading to Denmark, I was showing her pictures of the camp there. This camp keeps growing and growing and growing and growing, and I've watched some of these kids grow up from preteen almost to their 20s. And I've watched some grow from 16 into their early to mid-20s. And it is one of the most popular camps in Denmark. I said, look, I don't say this because I'm great or anything like that, but I literally, my name is one of the more well-known names in Denmark. It just is, because blind eyes opened and all kinds of miracles fell and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of people fighting to get to that camp. Because for 4 days, guess what? I have these kids. For 4 whole days, we're going to be in a boarding school, James and I. And I'm going to be playing games. Hopefully they have the bow and arrow game where I get to shoot them with bow and arrows. That was always fun. I already sent him a message. I sent this the leader of the camp, Miriam, which you all will meet one day. She's begging to come out here. She wants to. They're gonna fly her and her husband Frank. They're like my brother and sister. And I have an apartment at their house.
Wow.
I have my own coffee maker, my own sheets,
Wow.
stuff up there. You know, it's waiting on me. I have my own kitchen. And so they're like so excited. They're like, you're coming. Well, their daughter, she calls me uncle. And so I'd sent her a message on the way down. It was like, Talia, I refuse. These are 3 things I demand on this trip. Number 1, I want a green room. And my green room has to be filled with green M&Ms. I will not eat any other color.
Oh, God.
1,000 green M&Ms.
1,000.
And I went to number 2. I refuse to dance. I will not perform a dance. I will not be part of a dance. I will not line dance. I will not do any of your dance routines. Number 3, I will never, ever learn Danish. I might as well just scream at you with gibberish. That's as far as it's ever going to go. She wrote me back. She was like, I will have in your green room, which will be your bedroom, every color but green. You will be forced to perform many dances. And they did this terrible game where the kids got a point. It got some reward at the end of the camp if they could get me to say 1 whole sentence in Danish. It was awful. Everywhere I went, say this, Luther. I'm like, what is that? They were like, say it. And so they would have me like pronounce a syllable, and then they would film it, and then some of them started cheating by cutting it together. So it was recorded. So look, he said the whole thing. I get the prize. I'm like, you're a cheater. So we're going to have a blast. It's going to be a party there. It always is. I love them. But in Denmark, there's a family of 200 plus people that you guys haven't met yet, who had begged me to start a church in Denmark. I'm like, oh, guys, that's a rough one for me. Germany just seemed easier. But they're hungry. They're hungry. It's grown. It keeps growing. And the guy that you see sometimes, well, on every Zoom call that asks really good questions.
Yes, he's
It's
great.
one of my spiritual sons, Benjamin.
Yeah.
Led him to Jesus. And he's just awesome. He is so excited to see me. He's taking the train from Copenhagen, 2-hour train, or 4-hour train, to be there. And so we're just, I have to look and say, okay, what can I steward? And now this is becoming what this is. I can't tell you how blessed I was to go to Colombia with some of the group. There's a lot more people I could put on that trip. It kind of formed by itself. I didn't have a chance really. I did go over the names. We went over the names and we're like, not this one, not this one. But I didn't really add really a bunch to it. There were a bunch of people that I would like to have added, and we'll probably add one. But I mean, those trips could easily swell to 50 to 100 people wanting to try to go. And really easy. If I just opened it up to my other networks. I mean, I've had people flying from Germany, I've had people flying from Denmark, I've had people flying from the UK. And I mean, that's just it. So I have to try to be really careful on how spread out I get myself, and so that I can steward what's available. But I feel a strong sense of stewarding this because I see it takes a while. You know, nobody has a baby and the next week is walking. You know, it takes sometimes years to get things. It probably go for 2 years to Corinth, to help Corinth rise up and grow into something. So I'm not in a rush in that sense. But the thing I'm looking for is not necessarily overwhelming fruit of everybody in this room has won 5 people to Jesus in the last 6 months. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for overwhelming maturity and humility. That you're walking out your life in maturity with the Lord. I could care less if you go out in the streets and you evangelize. I'm more into, are you stewarding your heart and loving others well? Are you doing that? Because if you do that, guess what? You don't have to worry about trying to win people to Jesus. People just come to Jesus. The more I started living my life not trying to win people to Jesus, more people came to Jesus. Because they want your life. So you have to say, if you're not winning people to Jesus, people might not want your life. I'll say that again. If the people around you don't want the Jesus you have, it might be because they don't want your life. When you walk a godly life that is transformational and you love people well, it becomes either a fragrance of life or a fragrance of death. So the people around you, if they see you love them well, you steward your heart well, you don't get upset, you don't have emotional swings, you're just really steady and faithful in this way. They look at you and they say, how long will you care? And I love that. I love that when people come up and say, how long will you have? For our group, just in Columbia, the leader there, you know, Tom, he just reached out. He's written, I think, Cessna because he can't get a hold of me.
You learned quickly.
I don't even look at WhatsApp. I don't know if anybody's written on it. I don't have no clue. You know, I remember when I brought Cessna, I added Cessna to the WhatsApp. She goes, all these messages, I've missed all these messages. I'm like, I know, it's too much. Who wants to look at all the others? She's like, we were supposed to read a book. I was like, apparently. You can tell me what the book is like. She was like, well, we have to fill out forms. Yeah, someone will fill it out. Like, I don't care. And so she's like, Brent, there's things you have to do. I was like, are there really? Are there really things I have to do?
They hound you.
And
Yeah.
You're on the naughty.
I think I was the last person to fill out the forms, the last person to pay.
Yeah.
They even wrote it on a text.
They did. They did.
And but Tom has reached out and he's just like, how do you create family like that? Like, how do you have this? Like, we don't know how to have this. And that's his whole thing. Like, will you come? Will you sit down? He asked me, I mean, this is a leader of another organization that is very successful. Sitting down. I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar ministry in expenses. Not that it's generating multi-millions, but properties and expenses, 20 plus people, full-time staff, helping women who have been trafficked, helping children who have been trafficked, teaching single mothers how to do things, teaching inner city kids how to speak English, like youth, school for kids, all this stuff, like it is massive. And I'm looking at this and he pulls me aside and he's like, I just give you authority to speak into any part of my ministry. Anything you see wrong, tell me. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me how to have what you have. And he's like, if you have teachings on identity, can you send them to me? If there's a teaching that I need to hear, like I don't understand how you're doing this. Like, I try to tell you guys, like, this isn't like I built up some type of imagination of what people are going to experience or something when they walk into this room, and that's why everybody falls down. They just fall down because they know Brent's going to pray and people fall down. Here I am on top of the roof to a bunch of leaders from other churches. They have no clue who I am. They've never met me. They've never heard about me. I have no clue who I am. And I pull one woman up. Boom. Hits her. Put below another one. Boom, boom, boom. Just starts hitting all of them. Next thing you know, they're just all weeping, sobbing, screaming into the presence, and all this other stuff. Why? I don't need people to hunger to encounter the Lord. My hunger for them to encounter the Lord causes them to encounter. So it's not about who's hungry or not. Let me put it this way. When you're sick, what's the last thing you want to do? Eat. When you're sick, the last thing you want to do is eat. So when you see people that don't want to eat, it tells you their heart is sick.
Wow. Yeah.
So you go after their heart and expose the sickness. So that's all it is. The Lord's just given me the ability to know, okay, there's 3 ways into this. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. What's the most fruitful? Okay, I'll do that. There's always a door to walk through, if you're patient enough to find it. Ask of me. Knock. See? It's all there. Like, and so what is it about your life that people want? Your marriage. Do they want your marriage? I'm so surprised people that make comments about my marriage sometimes. But what you all saw on the trip is what it is. It's just what it is. You know, I'm usually just stuck staring at Cessna most of the time. It's just like, man, she's so beautiful. Jumping around, dancing, playing, having fun. I was just like, oh man, she's amazing. You know, Cessna sometimes she's like, I just don't know what you're thinking sometimes. I was like, it's rather simple. It's not very complex up there. It's, I love Jesus. Wow, you're beautiful. Usually those 2 things. Like, it's one of those.
I mean, I was gonna say,
Very simple.
yeah.
It's not like, I'm not doing trig up there. I'm not doing calculus. You know, I'm not doing algebra. It's just like,
But the funny thing is that you can read it. Like, it's very easy to read on you, and I think that's why people are drawn to that, because they can read it all over your face.
yeah, like, I'm giddy. I'm excited. I'm just like, it's amazing. I get to be with her every single day. Hopefully, soon, when she can travel.
Yeah.
You know, I was already in Columbia thinking, I have to go to Greenville, and I have to get on a plane, and I have to go to Denmark. I'm already in Columbia going, I don't want to do it. She's like, you have to go. I'm like, but I don't want to. She was like, it's gonna be fine. Just send me after you get home. Go. I got it. I'm like, ugh. At least it's not 19 days. 19 days was the worst. But, so, whether it's my marriage, whether it's my ministry, all this stuff, like, I want you to feel loved. I don't want you to feel used. Who's like, there was a friend, he asked to be my friend. Sesta had told me, she was like, this guy I wish you could meet. I saw a video of him on YouTube, and I was like, oh, whatever. I don't want to meet this guy. She was like, he's very well known. He was one of the top earners for Ronan Builds before it went public, and they destroyed their marketing. And so he found me on Facebook. I'm like, hey, this guy reached out to Gabriel. She was like, Gabriel reached out to you? I was like, yeah. She goes, that's who I was telling you about. He's like famous, like talks about money and finances, all this stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, he wanted to know if he could have coffee. Maybe he's trying to get me in his multi-level marketing. I don't know. So I go and I have lunch with him. This guy's incredible. Like, just absolute. He reached out because he was, for 1 year, he was Daniel Kalinda's roommate at Brownsville. And he was like, yeah, I went to Brownsville Revival. I was like, oh, cool. I was like, I had no clue. And he was like, hold up. And we're in a coffee shop. We're at Frothy Monkey. And he like jumps up real quick, and this old lady walks in. There's nobody to help her at the door find a seat. And he was like, hey, can I help you? And he walks her over, sits her down. He was like, don't worry, I'll make sure. No, I'm like, you're running the joint like it's yours. And he's like one of these people, like, everybody in the room feels loved. And he sat back down and said, man, Gabe, I was like, man, I this room feels so loved. It just pours out of your life. And so we ended up becoming friends. And I remember one day he told me, he was like, yeah, you know, because I was one of the core people from Roden Phils. He goes, you know, my payout's like $2.1 million a month. I was like, so like every month, I need $2.1 million coming into your account. You know, in the back of your mind, you're like, one check would cover the rent for like, one Thai check, 10% would cover all the rent for the church. And he looked across and he was like, is there anything you need? And I'm like, I have a long list. There could be a long list right now. And I just looked at him and I said, yeah, here's what I want. I want to be your friend. I don't want anything from you. I just want to love you. I said, because you just told me how much you make. And I know with that number, people come to you all the time wanting something. I just want to be your friend.
Come on.
And we became friends. And I remember one day we left the coffee shop and we were walking outside and he pulls a massive wad of hundreds out of his pocket. And I just looked at him and said, Gabriel, no. And he goes, Brent, just be quiet. Starts counting out like $400 or $500, $600. I was like, Gabriel, no. And he goes, why do you think it's about you? He said, here, give this to Cessna. Tell her to go get a massage, get her hair done. So I walk in, I give it to Cessna. She goes, I was just praying this morning. I wish, Lord, I could get my hair done. And I said, well, Gabriel heard that from the Lord, so here you go. And it's things like that. Like, I didn't have to force anything. And, you know, we would sit down, and here he is coming to me. Can I just ask you some financial advice? I was like, I make like nothing. And I usually empty out my bank account about every day. You have 2.1 that comes in every single month. You want to ask me? It was like, yeah, I'm thinking about buying this van for like $180,000. And I was like, yeah, show it to me. Shows it to me. It's got like 12 passenger like the captain seats with the 42-inch. He was like, I just wanted to be able to take friends, like when we go down to Destin or something. All my friends can jump in and we just drive down and I can loan it out to people. I'm like, I know a large family that would love a 12-seater van with a 42-inch television to go to Florida, you know. You're gonna rent one of those beach houses, you know. But I just kept my mouth shut. I was like, no, man, I was like, dude, you make $2.1 million every month. Spend 100. That would be expensive for me.
Yeah.
That's like cheap for you. I was like, do that. And he gave abundantly, but I never took a dime from him because all I wanted to do was love him. And he's still friends with me today. And that's the thing, like I have to do that. I've had people offer me millions of dollars. And I just say, no, your heart's wrong. You can't take it. It's perverted. It's not God. But why would a multi-millionaire come and say, I want your life? That's the type of thing that we should be carrying. A fragrance of Christ. People look at your life and they're like, man, I got everything I thought I needed. But apparently I don't have everything I need. You're carrying something that I want. And that becomes the greatest evangelistic tool, is a transformed life. How I react in every situation. You know, when I'm in that TSA line in Houston, starting a revolt. Revolt because Congress decides they don't want to pass a financial bill to fund those TSA people. Now I'm missing my flight. Cessna's behind me looking at me going, are you being loved right now? I'm like, shh. You don't understand, this is a justice issue. This is righteous indignation you're feeling right now. Righteous indignation. This is righteous judgment. And she's like, Brent, it's going to be okay. I have to just, you're right. So I immediately, I kind of take that step back. And next thing you know, worship music's playing in my head. I'm in that place of adoration. I just hear it. I love it. I wake up in the morning with worship music in my head. Go to sleep often with worship music in my head. I'm just not allowed to be angry. I'm not allowed to be depressed. I'm frustrated and rejected. I'm not. There's just a place of maturity I've grown in the Lord that's just not acceptable. That just shows I don't know His love. It shows there's places in my heart that aren't committed to Him and I just need to abide. So, if people aren't running up to me and saying, I want what you have, I'm not shining Him. If I have to give Him my resume. I used to do that. We'd go to coffee shops or I'd go in the streets and I'd be like, Lord, if I really carry your glory, your presence, let someone that has no clue who I am run up to me and say, I want what you have. I haven't seen that happen. Having that happen, walking up to a random person, shaking their hand, and the glory of God falls on them. That isn't a teachable thing. That's a self-control thing. Me practicing discipline and self-control when no one sees me. How I steward my relationships, how I deal with conflict, all of that matters. Quick to repentance on everything. Quick to say it's not worth it, it's not worth being upset over. how Sessa and I resolve conflict, and how quickly we resolve conflict. It's so important. So, I think the idea of going and getting 10 people saved right now probably gives my heart this pounding feeling in the same way of me having 10 new kids. Like, that's a responsibility. That's a responsibility right there. What am I going to do with 10? What if I get 10 and they're really hungry? Man, they go radical and then they grow like gremlins. You feed them chicken after 12. They multiply.
Just don't get them wet.
So Brent,
Just don't get them wet and feed them
Get 'em
chicken.
wet, that's right.
so, I mean, you can't evangelize and then point them to a ministry that you admire? Local? No?
I have to find a ministry I admire.
Well, all right, let me take back that particular word. I get where you're coming from, but I mean, you know, people are doing their best, I guess. But I mean, you understand what I'm asking you.
Yeah, that's hard. Because I've sent people to churches and they came back broken. Abused. That's why I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to start cultures from the bottom up. You know? It's like I told last time, I went to a church in Nashville, Sessa and I, we popped in there. I was like, let's just run in. I said, hey, do you want to go there tomorrow morning? She said, oh, let's do it. I really would like to go. And so we jump in, we're trying to hide. I'm trying to hide. She's like, Jesus. I'm like, people are going to see me. James saw me. And then people start coming up. It's Brent. And like I said, the pastor's waiting at the door, shaking hands. I've met this guy, shaken his hand several times in the past. He never remembers me, which is okay. But he's shaking hands, and I start to walk up. Now, he has an amazing ability to always highlight me, this pastor. If I'm there, he will find me. And so it's like a fragrance being diffused, right? And so I go to walk out the door, and guess what? There's other people, he's shaking hands, but he looks at me and goes, well, good morning. Good morning. Shake his hand. He's like, have you been here? Have we met before? I said, yeah, we've met a few times. I said, yeah, you probably don't remember who I am. You know, he was like, well, I'm so glad you all came this morning. I said, well, it was a great service. Great sermon. And he said, well, thank you. And then all of a sudden a woman comes running up. One of his staffers. She said, oh my goodness, Jeff, it's him. I'm like, oh Lord. It's Brent Kelley. This guy, you need to know him. If you want to cause a pastor to throw out red flags as quickly as possible, have an enthusiastic woman come running up and say, it's you. Jeff, this is what I told you about. He needs to come to your house and lay hands on you. I'm like, you're ruining it right now. You're ruining this moment. She's like, he is the most anointed healing evangelist I've ever met. What does the pastor say? Well, maybe I don't need to know him. And that wasn't a joke. That was the caution in his heart. What if my staff love him more than they love me? And I'm like, oh. It didn't stop there. Other people started running over. It's Brent. Brent's here. Are you going to start coming here? Definitely not going to have that conversation right now. So in my situation, it's like you go and try to sit on the back row, the pastor finds you. Hey, what's your name? Brent. What do you do? He's probably expecting, oh, I play the stock market, I'm a real estate investor, I'm this, I have a company, coffee shop. No, I travel the world and release the glory of God and make disciples and plant churches. That either hits the wall in two ways. There's a little bit of humility. Man, we'd love for you to pray for people here. And I've had some people say that for a season, for a moment. And the other is, ooh, this is the guy that splits my church. Right here. And so, then the next thing that happens is they invite you in. You know what happens at that point? You're not a one-hit wonder. You're actually hitting it out of the park all the time with the Lord because you walk in relationship and things happen every time you show up. And then that becomes annoying. Every time Brent shows up, the glory falls. And when Brent's not here, the glory doesn't fall. So what do? Get rid of Brent. Otherwise, people are going to realize I can't carry the glory like him. The other side of it is, I send people to the church. Who sent you here? Brent Kelley. And then I've had them speak evil of me to the fruit that I sent to try to discredit me to give them more influence in their life. Not to realize that those people were extremely grateful that I brought the gospel to them. And then they come to me and they say, why when I go to this church, nothing really happens, but when I come to your meetings, stuff happens. So that's the situation. Tom in Columbia, he asked me, he was like, if you give me one recommendation, what would it be? I said, find a place you can put people in. Well, we go to El Camino. Find a place you can put people in. Find a place where they'll learn identity and truth. Go win the lost and find a place you can put them in. And that might require you creating a place to put them in. And that's where we are. So we're in situations where I get called into these communities and it's like this community bursts into something and then I'm looking around like, I can't put them in that wineskin. Because they'll burst and it's going to be ugly and everything will spoil. So I have to create a wineskin. I have to create a culture where they can grow up and they can be mature and they can walk. Because I think Ray and Elizabeth were talking about it the other day to me. They were like, where in the world are we going to go, Brent? In Nashville. They were like, where are we going to go? Like, we come to your meetings, crazy, wild, the glory, all of that. And then we're just going to go sit in church, 2 or 3 songs, 20-minute sermon. We can't do that anymore. What do we do? And so now I've got this whole group. I've got hundreds in Nashville that would come and serve in church. I mean, I could be successful. I could be in the top 5% to 10% of churches in Nashville. I was offered a church of 10,000 in Nashville. I turned it down. 10,000. Imagine. A $30 million building, 10,000 people. Have an indoor playground. Indoor playground in the atrium. 2 levels. And better than that, it was my family's building. Church of God of Prophecy. It's where they held their annual meetings. So my great-grandmother used to preach at that building. My dad was like, you're taking it, right? For our family, you're taking it. No. I turned it down. You turned down 10,000 people? Yeah. Why? I said, I told them the truth. I'll run them all off in the first month. Then we'll see who's hungry. So You have to be able to steward people. And the whole idea, well, maybe I can just drop them off here and everything's going to be good. How many of y'all just drop your kids off at a random daycare? You just trust any daycare? Do you trust anybody? Or do you sit down, have some conversations, stuff like that? So we have pastors in the city that want to work with us and all kinds of things like that. It's just, we have such a radically different culture. Tom hosts all kinds of churches, almost every single week. There's a new group at their foundation, Columbia. They've been doing this for like 10, 12 years. And he said, we have never had a group like yours. We've never seen a group like this in our entire life. They've hosted Bethel Reading. They've hosted Global Awakening with Randy Clark. And they said, we have never had a group like yours. So, why? Because we're building a culture, a kingdom culture. That's why.
And you think it's because you tell us that the same spirit is in you in us?
Yeah.
And for us to grow up to do the same as you?
Yeah, I don't want to be the ceiling.
man of God everybody goes to.
Yeah, I don't want to be the ceiling. I'm not here to hold you into a submissive role where you fill my bank account. That's not my goal. I'm here to become the floor so you can go as high as you can with the Lord. So that's my goal. But it's also, again, it's family. It's my willingness to invite you into my house, to eat dinner with me, to sacrifice my time, all that kind of stuff. And I'm learning. I'm trying to be better at that. I'm learning how to be better at that in everything. We were cracking up at the table during lunch because Jennifer asked, a question about, I made the comment, I'm in rebellion with God. She goes, well, how long have you been in rebellion? I was like, 4 years. She was like, 4 years you've been in rebellion? I'm like, yeah, the food's pretty good here. He meets the basic necessities. It's okay. I'm okay. He's adding pressure though. There's pressure. He told me, and Cessna said, you either feed Jesus a sheep or you get rid of yours. So I was like, I want to get rid of my sheep. I like my sheep. Can I keep a few sheep? Then the Lord said, your farm's an idol. I was like, well, that's a little rough. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that? 2 weeks later, 9 sheep die. I'm like, okay, 9 sheep. 9 sheep in a week. Dear Lord. That's rough. Okay, you have my attention. We're listening. We're listening. What do you want? Tells me what I want. What do you want? I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm grown. Because I know what he wants. There's a lot of risk in that. I've talked about that in the past. But I'm trying to be a better leader. And I'm trying to love you better. And I'll continue to try to love you better. And the only way I can love you better is to bring you closer into my family. It's the only way I can keep you outside of that circle. You get to be, you have to allow people into the inner circle. We always say, well, there's layers. Jesus takes away the layers. His mom was just another mother. His brother was just another brother. His sister was just another sister. These are my mother, my brothers, and my sisters, those who do the will of my Father. So the whole idea, well, family first. Family first. And so allowing people in to see family. And the biggest thing, I think he was talking to me this week, is that I'm just looking at the theology and the craziness online that I see coming from people who have influence that really shouldn't have influence. And the need and the demand that the Lord is placing on me to teach. But I don't teach on what I haven't seen and what I haven't known. That's what it, my kids, they're good kids. Do they need to fall in love with Jesus more? Absolutely. People would probably look at my family and say, oh man, your kids are great. I'm like, they are great. But I need to learn better how to lead them greater into his presence. And I understand for me, it's a lot different than some people. My kids grew up sitting on people during deliverance and holding buckets as they puked. I don't know if your kids grew up that way, but that's what my kids grew up every single week. Oh, we're having a meeting. Witches are coming to our house. Yay. Dad's going to cast them out. That's a normal Saturday, Friday night at our house. My kids grew up in that. So where most kids in youth group have never seen devil manifest, and never seen a leg grow out. They've never seen people cough up a tumor or lose 25 pounds in the middle of a meeting and their pants fall down. My kids have seen all that.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Make sure you got it.
Looking at your son and being, Asher, can you go out and get a rope out of the garage to hold this guy's pants up? So this is what my kids grew up with. So what does that mean? To them, the supernatural is natural. And where we think that's very exciting, it can become very complex. Because how do you dream bigger? For me, it was like I had never saw, some other things. I've seen just a few things when it came to miracle signs and wonders with my parents. So it left me a lot of room to grow and dream with the Lord. Okay? My kids have seen it.
So it's like your goal when a great thing happens, like in the supernatural, you want that great thing to become normalized so that it's a baseline. So now you just talk about that matter.
Yeah, for me, that's what I want. How do I give that to my kids? That's where it's harder, where it doesn't become casual. See, I fought to get to that place. There was a warring and a wrestling to get to that place. And what we see through scripture and history, if it teaches us anything, is the moment there's prosperity. And the prosperity becomes normalized. People relax. And they don't have to war. They're going to have to wrestle with God. And they're going to have to figure some things out for themselves. I love my kids. Like, if I say, oh my goodness, something happened, my kids immediately go into prayer. Are they in their room all the time praying? I don't know. I hear them sometimes. I'll hear my daughter pray or something like that. Or, I made the comment, I was outside and I was doing something and I quoted John chapter 1, John chapter 2, or something like that. And Levi looked at me and said, oh, I read that yesterday. I was like, you did? Okay, buddy. I didn't know. I didn't ask them. But they value what they see me value. And so they replicate that. And so yeah, they need their own salvation. So I've got to figure out how that, but the thing is that I sometimes forget how innocent they are. They just don't know anything. They don't know what's out there. They just don't know what's out there. We had a package come in. My oldest son, 16, or going on 16 this year. Had a package come in the mail. He opens it up. He was like, yes, it came. He opens it up. It's a Black Sabbath shirt. He's like, look at the art of this. I'm like, yeah, Black Sabbath. I was like, you have to wear that when your grandma comes over. He did. And it was so great. She walks through the door and she sees it and goes, Black Sabbath. That was my first concert I ever went to when I wasn't saved. There was so much drugs going around at that time. I mean, she was doing everything to put the fear of the Lord in him. And Asher's idea of Black Sabbath is an old Ozzy Osbourne that got saved before he died. Like, how bad can this guy be? I mean, you know, I'm like, well, it could be that he bit the head of a dove off, but he was trying to be really, really cruel, but it was an act, mostly, for attention and popularity and stuff like that. And so I said, so here's the deal. I want you to know, we're going to talk about the shirt, along with his Metallica shirt that he got. And we're going to talk about it. I said, so here's the deal. I said, why did you get it? He was like, well, I thought the art was really cool. And I've heard like a song or two. And I was like, yeah, I mean, Black Sabbath, Iron Man, come on. Different things like that. Totally get it, understand it. I said, so here's the problem though. I said, your idea of what this isn't necessarily how other people see that as what it is. And I said, so first of all, like if you're wearing that at a meeting, for instance, people are going to perceive something different. People are going to perceive you broken and all this other stuff. And so this is how I deal with it. Because in his mind, he's not playing records backwards, saying Satan is my friend, Satan is my pal. He's not playing, he has no clue. So the worst thing you can do is overreact. Worst thing you can do is make it law. Don't touch, now I want to touch it. Don't listen to it, now I want to listen to it. Don't do this, why can't I, Paul? I knew not to covet until I heard, thou shalt not covet. And then all these desires within the flesh came up. So what do? Well, let's just talk. Let's communicate, let's talk about it. Why wouldn't this music be good? What songs wouldn't be good? What the spirit behind it? All this other stuff. I'm not trying to scare the hell out of them. I'm not telling him, if you listen to that, a demon's going to come into your earlobe and speak things to you. I was like, did you know the lead singer of it used to be a pastor's kid of Metallica? No, I didn't know that. Yeah. He was very broken and he really hated Jesus. And there's a lot of things that were written out of a very broken place in his side of his heart. And so just think about those things. Just ask Jesus what he says. And so that's how I didn't say no. That's not acceptable in my house. Get it out of my house, it's demonic. No, I didn't do that. I took care of it the same way I took care of, hey buddy, the Lord tells me you're going to see something you shouldn't see in a couple weeks. It's going to come, it's going to sneak up, it's going to grab you, and when you see it, you're going to feel like something innocent left your body. You're going to feel broken. You're not going to know why. When that happens, run to me. Run to me. And he did. He ran straight to me. Dad, I never want to see that again. I don't know what that was. I don't want that. Yeah. Let me tell you how. So we take walks in the park and we talk about those things and stuff like that. So I don't swing real heavy in these things. And then I quickly find out that the pursuit, the passion, the desire kind of just fizzles out on its own. Next thing, not wearing the shirt anymore. Next thing, not desiring to listen to this or to see this. You know, every once in a while he'll be like, because, you know, he's got cousins and he's got friends, and he's like, hey, watch this movie. I'm like, the cut version or the uncut version?
Right.
You know, let's talk about it. You know, I think it was Aliens. You know, and I was like, I'm going through my head really quick. Okay, then one scene, these things. Okay, so how did it go? How are you doing? Want to talk about anything? And talking about that, I am presenting 2 trees in front of them. I'm not removing a tree.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Jesus, God did not remove the tree. He still gave you the ability to choose the knowledge of good and evil. Was he a good God? Did he allow you to fall? Was he still a good father? The difference with it is I get to have communion with my son. And that communion and that intimacy and relationship is what also guides his interests and his desires. So, to a degree, there's no law in our home. There's no law. There's no reason to have a law. Most of it they just don't even understand. They're like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to? Like, the comment with my daughter when she was like, so-and-so moved in together. Isn't that sweet? I was like, they're not married. Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, they're just roommates. I was like, I don't think they're just roommates. What do you mean? I said, they're probably having sex. Why would they do that? They're not married. I was like, I thought your mom had the birds and the bees with you. Like, what do you mean? Like, they're living together. Yeah, but why would they do that? They're not married. I was like, I don't think they're moving in to save money. I don't think they're being roommates in the same room to save money, Sabella. They're in a relationship in that way. Oh, that's wrong. Yeah. Yeah. It's not right. It's outside of covenant. But she doesn't even have a thought process to that. That just doesn't even make sense. Why would you do that? So that's where we are in parenting. I'm trying to figure it out every single day. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I lead them where my dad was like, don't touch, don't do. Don't do this.
You know, like I only have one kid. I'm having the exact same thing. And I was just going to ask, Ben, is there anything you wish you would have got sooner? That now looking back, you know, you're like, I wish I knew that sooner.
I saw how discipline changed the personality of our firstborn. She was the most disciplined. And because you're trying to figure it out. And so you're young. I'm 24. So at 24 years old, you know, we have people praise us all the time. We'd be sitting at a table and here's a toddler sitting in a seat being a great kid. And that great kid was a great kid out of fear. And because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted her to listen, obey, and do this and that. And so I over-responded with discipline. And there was another thing. So I was closer to our daughter for a long time. And part of that is that I had been praying for a daughter since I was 16. So when Cessna said, you're having a daughter, I was ecstatic. And so hospitals weren't really, in 2006, they weren't really pushing breastfeeding. They were pushing Similac. And so Cessna didn't even see that as an option because I don't even think they brought a lactation nurse in. So I thought, wow, okay, formula, I get to feed her. So we get home from the hospital and I'm like, you just sleep, I've got this. I stole a lot of beautiful moments from her. A lot of beautiful moments of bonding. Cessna was just, she was young. So to her, it was, I get to sleep. So she wasn't upset, but she saw how it changed the dynamic of her relationship and the bonding later on around 6 and 7 and 8 years old, and how our daughter responded to me versus responded to her. Then, we had a very disciplined daughter, so there was no fits. But it was still today, you go out, we don't have we haven't had a meltdown in a public setting in a long time. I think maybe the last one was our 4th. I was in a grocery store the other day and I saw a meltdown. It was like a 6-year-old holding on to a box of cereal with everything in her. She wanted that cereal. Threw herself on the ground, stomping, all kinds of stuff. And I was like, poor thing, poor mom. And I just kind of thought in the back of my head, I was like, man, you know what? That has happened a long time. We haven't had any of them act like that. And part of that is that I changed the way I disciplined, first of all. So in the first one, it was like, you do anything wrong, you get disciplined. There was a lot of fear. It created a lot of anxiety. It created a lot of physical issues, like insecurity, even health-wise, because anxiety and fear. It wasn't like I was just sitting there, waiting to spank her every moment. But it wasn't representing the Father's heart. It was representing my Father's heart on earth, how I was disciplined. And so I had to change. So Sabella always makes the comment, she goes, and the younger ones never get spankings like I did. They never get disciplined like I did. It's completely different. So by the time we got up to Finley, it was smooth sailing with Finley. That's number 4. Finley, smooth sailing. Ren comes, well, our whole idea of discipline just went up because we don't know what to do. Special needs, doesn't understand, so we're trying to figure that out. So it made it harder by the time we got to number 7 with Eden, because Eden can't understand why his sister doesn't get disciplined, but he does. She gets away with doing this. He doesn't. It's not that we're letting her get away. It's just that you discipline her, but she doesn't quite understand the discipline. So you have to figure out ways, how do I help her understand that we're trying to protect her? Because don't touch the stove and a smack on the hand doesn't work for her, because she has a massive pain tolerance. And I remember the other day, a couple months ago, Cessna came and had pulled up her sleeve on her shirt, and she was like, did you see this? And there was a massive burn where I guess she had put her arm on the stove and burned her arm. We never knew that day until she went to change her clothes that night, because she doesn't show pain. She does not feel pain like a normal kid. She feels emotional pain, but not physical pain. So if I spank her for doing something, well, guess how she takes it? It's, I've disappointed you. And she responds to that. Her feelings are hurt, not her body. Eden's like, what can I get away with? You know, I mean, he wants to be there cooking when I'm cooking. He wants to clean when I clean. He wants to do everything that I'm doing. If I go out, I was trying to do plumbing in the well house, and he was climbing up the ladder trying to get in the well house, and he was throwing couplings at me. Like, here's another coupling. Here's another coupling. You might want the glue too, so let me throw that. You know, and I'm like, calm down, buddy. I will get to it. Hold on. He just wants to help. But I had to learn that every child requires a different form of discipline. But I couldn't do one like the other. And so disciplining got easier and easier and easier because behaviors weren't being replicated by those before them. So they weren't following well. Okay, like, well, I saw Elias do this, so I want to do it. Like, we don't have a lot of fights. There's moments, but I see a fight. If I see Finley and Elias, a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old fighting, you know what it tells me? They just need a little bit more of Dad's love and attention. So, hey, jump in the car. Let's go somewhere. Let's go on a walk. Let's go to the park. That's what I do. You know, that's what James was reminding me in the car because I made a comment about Elias. I was like, yeah, it's been a little bit, I've been feeling that in my heart. I need to spend more time with Elias. And so, you know, I just make a focus on that. Spend time with Elias. Spend time sewing into him. He's 10 years old. You know, just love on him a little bit more. And so I do that. And try to be intentional that way. Isabella, she needs some time here. You know, Asher, he needs time here. That's what I do when I get home, on top of answering texts, phone calls, everything else. Everybody needs something. Sestina needs something. You know, so I have to quickly come to the understanding that no one drinks from my cup. Because if I have to go and get refilled, that cup empties out really quick. So what if I just never have to be filled? Because I'm always running over. And so that's where I try to live. So Sestina sees me. You know, this week, I'm out on the deck, worship going, my laptop, because that's my portable office at the moment, is my back deck. You know, and I'm walking around, I'm just worshiping and praying. I'm trying to get as much in that moment as possible as Ren locks me out of the house because she figured out lock doors now.
Oh no.
And I'm doing that. Like, I take these little moments. If you were on the trip to Columbia, you would see me every morning. I'm up at 6:30 to 5:30, or 6 or 5:30 to 6 every morning. I've got my laptop open. I'm worshiping. I'm in prayer. But I continue to try to maintain that all throughout the day of that position in my heart. Everywhere I go. And it's so fun. So fun. So we're going to take a 25-minute break, a 30-minute break. Just right here before it gets 7, because some people are going to start coming in at 7 too. And then we'll continue. Yeah. Awesome.